And thanks to Jason for that report. Joining us now for insight and perspective on the allegations and investigations into potential fraud in Minnesota childcare centers is the Heritage Foundation's Alan Mendenhall. Good to have you with us this morning, Alan. Thank you for joining us. And from your perspective, what are the most important verified facts the public should understand right now about the alleged childcare fraud involving Somali-run centers in Minnesota, and also what remains unproven or perhaps speculative at this point in time?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and good morning. This is an appalling situation where programs that are meant for the most vulnerable are being exploited by fraudsters. So it's morally problematic on so many levels. But also, my fear is that this is not an aberration, but actually the predictable outcome of institutional incentives. So you have all these benefits concentrated and cost dispersed. And when that happens, rent seeking thrives. By rent seeking, I mean extraction, capturing government transfers and subsidies. So you have millions and millions of taxpayers who pay their taxes every year, and there's no way to really trace where that money goes. And so there's little incentive or information that it's needed for accountability. By contrast, if I'm somebody and I'm giving money to a 501c3 or something, I can demand an annual report. I can call the company and figure out where my money's going. But you don't have those incentives in place with these government agencies. Another problem with the incentive structure here is that actors in the public sector may respond to incentives in ways that preserve or grow budgets rather than minimize waste. And so after this COVID era, where you had the growth of different benefits, whether they were nutrition subsidies, whether it was with the housing stabilization services, whether it was Medicaid, you attracted fraudsters. So you had the wrong incentives in place to increase spending and participation in ways that actually attracted fraud. And so that's very problematic as well. So as in terms of the facts, we're still gathering facts. The DOJ is looking into the situation, and I suspect we'll find more and more fraud as the weeks go by.
And you've outlined a number of issues here that you've identified with all of this potential fraud. What would be your recommendations to making these wrongs right?
Yeah, so this is a high level question about the problem with a lot of different government agencies. So fraud's going to persist as long as the people who approve of the spending don't bear its downside. Agents monitor more carefully when the errors are no longer costless to them. So when the cost falls upon them, then they're incentivized to pay more attention. My friend OJ Aleka at the State Financial Officers Foundation recently wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal saying Minnesota needed a treasurer. Had Minnesota had a treasurer in place, then you would have flattened the delegation. Basically, you would have had accountability, a locus of accountability, and somebody in place who can see what's going on when numbers aren't adding up. So that's a particular approach. Another approach is make nonprofits accountable for some of these government benefits. Make them put up bonds or collateral or have some type of skin in the game and distribute the amounts incrementally and over time, so that in order to get this amount of funding, you have to do this. If to get this amount of funding, you have to do that, rather than just one gigantic windfall and then the money's harder to trace.
And what, if any, challenges are present in implementing recommendations like yours?
Well, obviously, anything that requires legislation has to go through the political processes, and politics are complex. It's not always easy to get things through. Get a bill to law. So, in particular, that's one problem. But then you're also dealing with state and federal. So you've got legislative fixes on both sides, and that complicates things.
Yeah. So what are you expecting to come of these investigations into these fraud allegations, more broadly in terms of the implications as well across the nation?
Well, I suspect you'll see more indictments. I suspect we're going to uncover more fraud. I also suspect we'll see different states looking at their own situations. I know in Alabama, we have some legislators who are looking into different programs in our state to see whether this type of fraud has spread there. I think also when you have poorly run government programs, you're always going to attract opportunistic behavior from cheats who want rent extraction rather than wealth creation. And so you're going to see a lot more transparency on both the state and federal level now around, in particular, these programs that are, again, meant to protect the most vulnerable, but that also makes them the most susceptible to abuse, because a lot of times when you've got a bureaucrat looking at a program, they'll say, oh, well, this is a program coded in morally acceptable language, and so we won't scrutinize it as much as we would scrutinize another program. Well, that is just a natural human reaction, but it leads to these widespread big consequences.
Great to hear your thoughts this morning on this ever-developing story. Thank you so much, Alan Mendenhall. Good to speak with you.
Thank you.